Hi, Jan Ozer here. I'm meeting today with Gabe Thomas, who is VP of Strategy and Business Development at APMC, or a parent media company. We're here to talk about a service called AdCurate that helps publishers improve ad quality and brand safety by providing real-time metadata verification and precise ad categorization. Thanks for joining me, Gabe.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me about APMC and AdCurate.
Yeah, so as a company, we've really got kind of two halves going. We act as a large CTV publisher, so we have a number of different owned and operated streaming apps that we have out in market. Our I would say newest and the one we're most excited about is Victory Plus. It's for live sports streaming, but we also have categorization TV for kids and family content. We work with some different YouTube creators like Dude Perfect to help create custom CTV apps for them. So we've got a lot of great content out there that we're monetizing as a publisher, and in that process, we've built out a couple different products that really help with that monetization, and they're places where we found that hey, this is a really cool tool. This is something that actually other streaming publishers can definitely benefit from, and we've sort of spun it out into a more of an ad tech focus side of the business, and that's really where I sit. And so the product that we're talking about today is AdCurate, and it gives real time information around the content of inbound ads that you would receive as a streaming publisher. and it was, the impetus for this was, as we were, like I said, as we were monetizing our own apps, especially things like Cadoodle, where it's kids and family content, and we wanted to make sure that the ads that were coming in were appropriate, brand safe, and that they matched with our different audiences. Without having to limit our options for demand, without having to cut out different demand streams. And so we built out this as a way to do that sort of real-time filtering, get all that real-time information around the ads, and we're really excited for what it can do for publishers today.
Okay, so let's explore the problem. This is, I guess most of your channels or all your channels are ad supported. Is that correct?
Yeah, some of them do have subscription options, but primarily we are ad supported.
So what is a bad ad experience? What are the concerns that you're trying to address with AdCurate?
Yeah, and I mean, bad ads are funny because I'm sure that there's something that everyone's encountered and everyone that's watched ad supported streaming, but maybe not something that someone sat down and tried to qualify or quantify. But I think that we can kind of think about them in a couple larger groups. And I think before I jump into that, also, I want to. I guess I want to reiterate that just because CTV is such a premium format, people are watching on the bigger screen in their house. They have a lot higher expectations around the sorts of things that are going to come through. So if you are a publisher and you put all this great work into developing this great premium content, and then the ads that sit among it is of dubious quality, then it sort of affects the overall impact that these users have when they're watching. And so going back to your question in terms of what actually are bad ads, I think that the biggest group is ads that are just poorly done. They have distortion, pixelation, volume issues. We see a lot of ads where somebody has tried to take a different format and repurpose it. So that might be a still display banner that's just shown in silence for 30 seconds in a video setting. That might be an audio ad that just runs with a "we'll be right back" slate. There's a number of things that can just sort of make these ads look let's say cheap, and that cheapens the overall viewing experience. The other type of bad ad that we like to look for is ads that I should say they aren't necessarily bad ads, but they're bad for the content that they're running with. That could be ads that aren't necessarily appropriate or well-fitting for that audience. or ads that maybe are coming through in incorrect language. Or something that we have started to look more at now is they just don't really fit with the tone and the content that they're running with. We we've started doing some work in the programmatic audio space as well, and something that has come up a lot is a lot of people will use that medium for things like a meditation app or a meditation stream, or maybe something that's a fairly somber political conversation, and you don't want it to jump in with like a really high energy aggressive auto parts commercial. And so being able to match the energy and the sentiment to the content itself is also something that can make or break a good or bad ad experience. And then finally, there's just issues around the sort of logistics of the ad sourcing itself. So a big issue today is ad duplication. It's really hard for publishers to be able to dedupe ads so that they're not showing the same one too often, or even back to back in the same ad pod. And then making sure that they're showing the right number of ads. Sometimes you'll get ads that are actually two different ads that are stitched together, and if you were thinking you were going to show your audience 4 ads, suddenly you're showing them 5. And so being able to look for those things and control for those things are really what can make a like I said, a good versus a bad ad experience.
In addition to just not being effective ads, how does that hurt the viewer experience, and how does that hurt the publisher?
Yeah, definitely. So, the biggest issue is that it can cause folks to leave the ads that leave the apps that they're watching, leave their streams that they're watching, and move on to other content. When when there is a bad ad experience, we see that user engagement goes down, ARPU goes down, and just overall number of ad opportunities is decreasing. There's a number of different folks that have tried to quantify this, and a number of different studies out there. I think that there's a really good statistic that 43% of streamers said that bad ads would cause them to stop using an ad-supported video service. And I know that there could be a lot of nuance in that. One bad ad isn't going to drive someone out, but if it's consistently a bad experience, it's going to impact your user rates.
Between first-party data and contextual, how is this a problem still in 2025? The whole point of CTV is ad personalization. How can these channels get this so wrong?
So almost all of the technology that's out there today is designed for the advertiser to better understand, where they might be running, and all the brand safety tools are there to protect advertisers. But there isn't really the reverse in very many regards for the publishers. And so what publishers have to rely on today, especially when they're monetizing programmatically, is a couple different self-declared signals that come from the advertiser side. And that's just going to be them declaring who the advertiser is and what the category of advertiser is. And what we see when we look at bid streams and we look at the data out there is that oftentimes those values are missing or incorrect. And I don't want to assume malicious intent. A lot of these campaigns are set up by people that are incredibly overworked, and sometimes they just don't have time to put in all the data correctly. But what that causes is a scenario where publishers can no longer be confident in understanding what's actually coming through the pipes and what's going to be running with their content. And beyond just that data, maybe being of questionable quality, it's very limited in scope. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to solve for is what additional signals are helpful. What else is good to know besides just what is the advertiser, and what are the use cases for those?
Okay, so how does AdCurate fix the problem?
So the way that we work, and we like to think of AdCurate less as an ad blocking tool and more of a data tool, really, because what we're doing is providing all of the granular pieces of data about every inbound ad, so that publishers can make their own decisions, or the platforms that service those publishers can make these decisions, and by sort of giving them full transparency into what's coming in, we're hoping that they can do it in an automated way, where they're not going through, they're not reviewing creatives one by one, and they're fully confident that if they say, I don't want something that's not safe for kids, something that's not safe for kids isn't going to get through. And so we have a number of different signals. We'll validate all of the standard ones, like the language and the advertiser and the category, just so that you can make sure that when you're getting that value, it's always populated and it's correct. But also, we'll like I said, we'll add in signals around quality, signals to let you know if it's a stitched ad together, if it's a duplicate ad, the tone and sentiment, all those sorts of things that are really helpful to know when you're doing your ad decisioning.
So where does that fit in? I mean, we're talking about less than 100 milliseconds by all accounts for programmatic. I mean, you're sending this information. It sounds like it's almost a DMP type function. Are you sending it through the SSP, the DSP? I mean, how is the information flowing through the channel?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so we have a pretty large footprint today across the CTV ecosystem. And so one of the things that we do is we look at an ad as an individual piece of creative, not tied to a specific creative ID or from a specific partner. And so even though a publisher might be getting the same ad through multiple different channels, chances are it's an ad that we've already seen before in some place that we're touching the ecosystem. And so for these ads that we've seen before, what we'll do is they'll go into our system, they'll get fingerprinted, they run through. We've got some really great MI models that we've built out by folks on our team that are much smarter than I am. And then we have a layer of human review as well that will go through and make sure that the AI output is correct, cleaned it up if needed. And then in some cases where it's more sensitive signals, like making sure something is safe for kids, we have a system where human reviewers actually have to give it an okay before the data goes out the door. And so to answer your question about milliseconds and real time, if this is something that happens the first time we see an ad, if it's an ad that then the next time we see it, we have the fingerprint for it, we have the data for it, it's returned in under 20 milliseconds. It's an instantaneous process. The very first time we see the ad, it will go into holding and has to get processed. So if you are blocking ads that don't have data for them, you would lose that first impression. But we've done a lot of research into this, and we find that the impression loss is pretty minimal. And in that time frame between the first time the ad is seen anywhere and when we have data for it, is quite light. And so from then on, we have a setup where we like to integrate where the ad decisioning is happening. I think that if we can come in where the final auction occurs is where we're going to be able to provide the most value. So if you're a publisher, you call your ad server will fan out to all of your demand sources, your SSPs, your DSPs, any internal campaigns you have booked, and then it will go through and it'll decide what's it'll both look at price points, decide what's going to net the publisher the most revenue, but also what is a good fit for this auction, for this opportunity. And it's already going through and doing things like throwing out demand that's below the floor. It's throwing out demand that doesn't meet some of the high level blocks that maybe a publisher has set up. And so we can inject our data in at this point, and then suddenly there's a lot more signals that are going into that ad decisioning, and it's actually a much smarter process where instead of just saying, well, we'll take anything as long as it's above this floor, we're saying, okay, well, we know that this is a home and garden program. So, maybe home and garden ads, we want to boost those up, or maybe ads for pharmaceuticals, certain pharmaceuticals, we want to, take them out of the equation. Things that are positive tone, we want to promote those. And so, this is really where our data can come in and be the most useful. There's a number of other places, in the ad chain where we can plug in, but our goal was to be able to work with existing ad stacks. A lot of publishers have great relationships with all of their demand. We're not trying to mess with that, and rather just come in and as a data provider and give an extra stream of data from all that existing demand.
Okay, where do ad exchanges fit into this picture? Yeah, my conception of this, which is rudimentary, is that the ad exchange was making most of the ad decisioning. So is that just incorrect, or is that a different structure?
And I think it all ultimately comes down to how people define different things. I think of an ad exchange like an ad network. It's sort of a place where it's a bunch of aggregated supply and demand together, and it's returning that back to the publisher. But ultimately, the publisher is going to have a final mediation layer that's making that decision of, okay, we got this from the ad exchange, we got this from this other partner. Which one goes in the slot? And that's usually an ad server, and that's probably the best point of integration.
Okay. What about for publishers who don't control their own ad decisioning? How would that work? Same kind of structure, or is this something different?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to flip forward a little bit. So for publishers that don't control their own ad decisioning, we do have an alternative setup where basically we can act as a final fire break for ads before they come back to the publisher. We can wrap any existing ad tags, and there's an additional piece of code that you would add to the tag that basically says, I don't want this. So you can designate in the tag itself, I don't want any ads that are inappropriate, or I don't want any ads that are these categories. I don't want any ads that are stitched together. And when the demand passes, back through that tag to hit the publisher and to go into their ad insertion, if any of the ads that come through meet that criteria, we'll just remove them from the pod. There's downsides to it where since it's not happening within the ad decisioning, there isn't necessarily always an opportunity to backfill it. There are ways that we can work with publishers on this. But we understand that publishers don't always control their own technology, and we wanted to have an option for those use cases.
Any difference between live and VOD? I guess passing up an ad for VOD is a little bit simpler because you just skip the ad. But what about for live? Does that mean you've got 30 seconds of dead air?
Yeah. So if you were to use this approach in a live setup, then it would be a slate that ultimately runs. This isn't necessarily our recommended setup if you're a live publisher. We, with our own Victory Plus app, we do run live sports, and we have some solutions for this, specifically around using our data for more advanced competitive separation. And in those cases, we are using it as a data API where we can backfill and we can make sure that those ad pods are always getting filled and there isn't any of that dead air or that slate due to ads being removed. And so it's something that we have a lot of experience with and that we like to work with publishers on that like to use the data. But this might not necessarily, this ad wrapper might not necessarily be the best setup for them.
Okay. I mean, I have NBA TV, and a lot of the shows that aren't on major networks are, you get dead air a lot. So it's not that unusual for live events to show a slate for 30 seconds or 15.
And it does happen, and it's something, we talk about bad ads that frustrate viewers. That is something that frustrates viewers as well when they see the blank slate. Sometimes they feel like they're being punished for nothing, where there's no one's even getting anything out of it. So we try to prevent that however we can. But like you said, it is something that happens, and it's not the end of the world.
Okay. What's the cost structure for AdCurate?
So we like to think of it as the publisher is paying for the data, and once they have the data, it's theirs. So we will charge on a cost per unique ad, and from there, once a publisher has requested data for that ad, it's theirs. They can re-request it from us as much as they want without cost, or they can store it. They can use it for future auctions. And one of the big places where I think I mentioned before we can help publishers a lot is by finding deduped ads. So if they're getting the same ad through multiple channels, multiple demand channels with different IDs, we can link those together, tell them, hey, if this is the same ad, so that they don't just keep running it over back to back. Since it's the same ad, that would be something that a publisher would only pay for one time, and we're not going to charge them for each iteration of the duplicate ad.
Okay. I mean, give us a percentage. Are you adding 5%, 10%, 1% to the overall price of running the ads, or I guess increasing the CPM by X, would you estimate?
It doesn't necessarily back out into a CPM, but what we're talking about is tens of cents in a scenario where in CTV folks are making anywhere from a $10 to $40 CPM depending on how premium it is. So it's a pretty small percentage of their total take home for the inventory. Now I know everyone hates having another fee on the stack, but that's why we tried to make this as light and stomachable as possible.
Well, I mean, your approach seems reasonable. Once I've bought the information on that ad, I shouldn't have to pay for it again, and you're not doing that.
Yeah.
What's your who can you tell us is using this beyond your own networks?
So we work with a number of different partners across the CTV space to implement this data. We work a lot with the different OEMs, and I'll say that Vizio and LG have both been great partners of ours. We work with the network Philo, which they're another great user of our data. We were able to do some really great stuff with them last year around filtering political ads and making sure that they're still able to see some of that revenue, but that they weren't showing ads that were offensive or didn't gel with their viewers or were on certain topics. So that was a really and it's ongoing, but I'll say that's a really great partnership for us. But yeah, I would say that a lot of the folks in the streaming space that maybe are a little bit more on the technology side have been our greatest partners to date, and we're really trying to figure out a way that we can help bring this to some of the more I'll say old school publishers that are coming have more of a backbone in traditional broadcasting and but would still benefit from this.
Okay. I mean, I guess you can always make the argument that you're not an expense, you're revenue generation because you're helping publishers produce higher quality ads or display higher quality ads, which means they're going to be more effective and they're going to retain viewers longer because you're not going to offend anybody. Does that resonate, or is that just marketing
No,
garbage?
that's perfectly correct. And I'll say that we actually help publishers increase their revenue in a couple different ways. One of them is just exactly what you said. We're decreasing user churn, we're increasing ARPU, we're keeping folks in the app longer. That's going to be more opportunities to monetize and overall just increasing the amount of volume that they can do. But in a similar vein, we can also by helping them better understand the demand that's coming in. We can help them find net new pockets of revenue as well. At a really basic level, there's certain demand and demand streams that are riskier than others, and certain publishers might be apprehensive to connect those. Now, really, folks can cast the widest net possible and trust that anything that's not the right quality or appropriateness or brand safety, it's going to get filtered out. And instead, they can just try to increase their bid density as much as possible, get as much demand as possible, and really get the best price for every opportunity. And in that same vein, by understanding what actually the ad is about, publishers can block less. If we go back to the political example from last year, the sort of standard
Hmm.
old school category that was used to flag ads is it was law, government, and politics. And so, let's say you just don't want political ads. Suddenly, you're also blocking any government PSA ads. You're blocking legal ads for law firms, and being able to go and actually say, okay, this is actually the specific niche of that I don't want. Suddenly, you're capturing significantly more revenue from these other categories that were getting overblocked before. I'll say another great example of this is health and fitness. A lot of people have to block it because they're worried about pharmaceutical ads. Now, with having this data that gives them a really granular look into the category, they can say, okay, I specifically don't want ads for sexual health medications, and that helps them, weed out the Viagra ads of the world, and suddenly, ads for dental offices and everything else that comes in under that umbrella. I mean, health and fitness is huge. Now they're able to capture revenue from all of those types of brands.
Okay. So there's a big changes in the whole ad ecosystem. The death of third party data, the increase in contextual. What are other trends that you're tracking, and how do you see AdCurate fit into those trends going forward?
Yeah, so and I think you kind of you hit the nail on the head in the question. Contextual is I think going to be and will continue to be a really big part of monetizing streaming. We're seeing brands get smarter and smarter and looking at what actually is the programming that they're running in, what is being talked about, what's whatever contextual signals they can ingest. And publishers should really be doing that as well, and be controlling the other side of that transaction to say, hey, like we know that this is a automotive show, this show about cars. We want to prioritize automotive brands because they're going to resonate the most with our audience. They're going to be the least intrusive, and ultimately it's going to be the best pairing. And so by being able to look at the other side of that equation, more and more brands are shifting to contextual targeting. Publishers should be doing the same thing. They should be looking at what's the very granular contextual category of these ads that are coming in.
Okay, so be a bit more descriptive on that. It's late in the day for me. I mean, what am I going to do as an advertiser or as a publisher with the data you're sending in that helps me be more effective with contextual?
Yeah. So, and this is data that's for the publisher, and so I would say it's kind of in line with a lot of the things we've talked about today. Is how do we make the ads align with the content as closely as possible, because that is the least disruptive for viewers. And so by being able to understand specifically what is this ad about, you can what your content is. This programming is about X. You can find ads that are in a similar vein and that match the content, the tone, the energy, to be able to say, hey, this is a show about health. We want to have ads about health. This is a show about home and garden. We want to have home and garden products, so that it feels like a more cohesive viewing experience.
I mean, our infrastructure is set up to provide that level of discernment at this point, or is that something that needs to be developed down the road?
So I would say that with our data, it's something that can be accomplished, and it's something that we're only getting better at, and something that we're definitely we're our own beta testers. We're doing a lot of this with our own O&O, and we want to make sure that we're providing our viewers with the best viewing experience possible. And so there's going to be a little bit of additional technical work that comes into it. We're still ironing some pieces out with specifically with this look to the future contextual pairing piece, but a lot of those signals are already there. Where publishers, ourselves included, are sending a lot of information around the content of the ads. There's a lot of great partners out there like Gum and Iris TV that have additional contextual signals as well. And just now we have to figure out how we meet in the middle by pairing that data with our own data and driving the best possible ad content pairing.
Okay. That's all I have. Listen, thanks for taking the time. Good to connect.
Great to connect. Thanks so much for having me.